Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is February 18th, 2026. Today we're opening a file that, and I'm being honest here, I thought was a prank when I first saw the abstract. We're talking about AI orchestration.
Right. The absolute monolith of the tech world right now.
It really is. It's the plumbing of the internet at this point.
It is, yeah.
And for, the last 2 years, that plumbing has been stamped with one name: OpenAI's OpenClaw. If you're a developer, a systems architect, a power user, OpenClaw is just the air you breathe.
It's the Windows 95 of this agentic era. I mean, it's everywhere, it works, and the entire ecosystem is just built to plug right into it.
Yeah, if you're running a swarm of agents for logistics, your calendar, whatever.
They're running OpenClaw, period.
But we have this report in front of us. It's titled ZeroClaw: The Lean Future of Distributed AI Orchestration. And it is proposing something that just sounds physically impossible.
It's a bold claim.
It is. It's pitting this new contender against the giant, but the specs are, well, let's just get right to the numbers.
The numbers are startling.
Startling is a polite way of putting it. I had to triple check this. So OpenClaw, the standard, is a beast. To run one node, you're looking at a storage footprint of over 2 gigabytes.
At least.
And you need over 2 gigabytes of RAM just to keep the lights on. That's before it even does anything.
Right. It's heavy. You need a real server for that, or at least a very high-end laptop to run it comfortably.
And then there's ZeroClaw. According to this technical breakdown, its footprint is 3.4 megabytes, and it runs on 5 megabytes of RAM.
It's a discrepancy of what, something like 400 times? It's just, yeah.
3.4 megabytes. That is smaller than a photo of my cat. That's smaller than an MP3 file from 20 years ago. How is that not a typo? How can you shrink a 2 gigabyte system down to 3 megs and claim it does the same job? It feels like you're selling me a car that fits in my pocket. I'm just going to assume it's a toy.
And that's the natural reaction, right? When you see efficiency gains that are that massive, you just assume functionality loss. You assume it's an elite version, maybe a demo. But this report, it insists that's not the case. This isn't a toy. It's a complete architectural rejection of how OpenClaw works.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. I want to understand how you cut 99.9% of the fat without killing the patient. Can the ZeroClaw thing actually replace the giant by the end of 2026? Or is this just a cool science project that's going to die on GitHub?
It's the classic battle.
Yeah.
An entrenched ecosystem versus radical efficiency.
Okay, let's get into the guts of this. The how. You don't get from 2 gigs to 5 megs by deleting some comments in the code. What is actually happening here? The report just keeps shouting one word: Rust.
Right.
But is a programming language really enough to explain that kind of gap?
Rust is a huge part of it, but not just because it's a fast language.
Yeah.
It's about how the software manages its memory and its state.
Okay.
So OpenClaw, like a lot of heavy enterprise tools, it's probably built on a stack with a heavy runtime, maybe Python, maybe Java, and it comes bundled with these massive libraries.
So when I launch OpenClaw, I'm not just launching the app, I'm launching this whole environment that the app has to live in.
Precisely. You're spinning up a virtual machine or an interpreter, you're loading a garbage collector to manage memory, and you're preloading these massive dependency trees just in case you need them.
Right.
OpenClaw is designed for developer convenience, not for execution efficiency. It keeps a ton of state, the memory of what agents are doing, right there in active RAM.
Which explains the 2 gigabytes. It's just hoarding data.
Exactly. Now you look at ZeroClaw, it's written in Rust, which compiles down to a single tiny binary file. There's no runtime to load, no garbage collector eating up CPU cycles.
It's running bare metal, essentially.
In a software sense, yeah. But the real trick, and the report really highlights this, is how it handles state.
Okay.
OpenClaw holds all the context and history in RAM. ZeroClaw delegates that instantly. It uses the file system, it just serializes the state to disk and immediately clears its RAM.
Wait, so it doesn't remember anything?
Oh, it remembers everything. It just keeps it in the filing cabinet, the hard drive, not on the desk, which is the RAM.
I see.
When it needs to process a step, it pulls the file, does the work, saves the file back, and wipes the desk clean. And that's how you stay at 5 megs of RAM.
That makes sense, but doesn't that make it slower? I mean, reading from a disk is always slower than reading from RAM.
In 1990, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But with modern NVMe drives, the latency for this kind of work it's negligible. And the trade-off is you can run the orchestrator on a toaster.
Okay, let's try an analogy here. It's like OpenClaw is a massive corporate headquarters.
Go on.
You've got the building, security, a cafeteria, a gym, a huge HR department. You have hundreds of people just sitting in cubicles waiting for a call. That's your 2 gigabyte overhead.
Right. Even if no work is getting done, you have to power the building and pay all the staff.
Exactly. And ZeroClaw. It's like a digital nomad freelancer. They don't have a building. They have a laptop and a phone.
Okay.
When a job comes in, they do the job. Job's done, they close the laptop.
That's a perfect analogy. But the question is, can the freelancer handle the same workload? The corporation has that massive library of resources in the basement.
Right. And that's the philosophy part, isn't it? OpenClaw carries the library in its backpack.
Yes.
ZeroClaw just has the phone number for the library. It's an orchestrator in the purest sense of the word. It directs the traffic. It doesn't try to be the traffic.
Exactly.
Okay, I buy the efficiency argument. I get why it's small. But now I have to be the skeptic. It's February 2026. OpenClaw has thousands of plugins, extensions, integrations.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, the whole ecosystem. ZeroClaw is a 3-megabyte binary. If I switch today, does my stuff actually work?
That is the big question. And the report is surprisingly honest about this. It admits that right now, today, it is not a drop-in replacement. It lacks that ecosystem depth.
So the freelancer is fast, but they don't have any contacts in their Rolodex yet.
Precisely. And this gets us to the migration phase. The developers released a command, ZeroClaw migrate OpenClaw.
That's a bold move.
It's a very bold move. A command line tool to suck your data out of the competitor. But it's not magic.
Why not? If it's just code, why can't I just, copy-paste my agent over?
Because of the language barrier. In OpenClaw, you use skills. These are usually Python scripts. They're interpreted, they're flexible, but they're heavy. ZeroClaw uses traits.
Skills versus traits, is that just marketing or is that a real difference?
No, it's a vital distinction. A skill in OpenClaw is like a recipe you hand to a chef. The interpreter reads it line by line and cooks it. It's slow, but it's easy to write.
Okay.
A trait in ZeroClaw is like an item from a vending machine. It's prepackaged. It's probably a compiled binary or a WebAssembly module. It's incredibly fast. But you can't just run a Python script as a trait without doing some serious work to convert it.
Ah, I see. So the migrate command might move my settings, but it can't magically turn my Python recipe into a prepackaged vending machine snack.
Exactly. And that is the friction point. The report predicts that over the next 3 to 6 months, developers are going to be furiously porting OpenClaw skills into ZeroClaw traits.
They're predicting functional parity by the end of this year. That seems aggressive. We're talking about rewriting an entire ecosystem. Why would developers even do that? If OpenClaw works, why bother?
Well, that's the gamble. The authors believe the incentive is cost and scale.
Right.
If you're a developer running 1,000 agents, your bill for the RAM to host OpenClaw is astronomical.
Right.
If you switch to ZeroClaw, your hardware bill drops by 99%.
So it's greed.
Yeah.
Or let's call it fiscal responsibility.
It usually is in tech infrastructure, but there's a huge risk. We call it the Linux desktop problem. You can have a superior architecture, technically better, faster, safer. But if the apps aren't there, users won't switch. And if the users don't switch, developers won't build the apps.
The classic chicken and egg. ZeroClaw needs the traits to get the users.
But it needs the users to tempt the developers to build the traits.
Yes.
The next 6 months are absolutely critical.
And if the community jumps on it...
If the open source community decides this is the new standard, they'll port everything in a weekend. We've seen it happen. But if they just shrug and say RAM is cheap, I don't care.
Then ZeroClaw stays a niche toy for nerds.
Exactly.
RAM is cheap is a kind of a dangerous mindset when you start talking about running billions of agents, though.
It is, but it's a very common one.
Okay, let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that the community does step up, traits get built, we hit that functional parity in December. There is still a huge elephant in the room the report talks about.
Oh, absolutely. The user experience hurdle.
Right now, running ZeroClaw sounds like a nightmare for anyone who doesn't, love staring at a terminal window. Config files, command lines, REST toolchains.
It's very hacker-centric at the moment, which is fine for early adopters. But OpenClaw is successful because it has a polished onboarding wizard. You click next, next, install, and you have an AI agent.
My mom could set up OpenClaw. My mom could definitely not set up ZeroClaw right now.
And that is the barrier to mass adoption. The report states it clearly. ZeroClaw has to transition to an app-like experience.
What does that actually look like? Are we talking about dumbing it down?
Not dumbing it down, but abstracting the complexity away.
Yeah.
So imagine a ZeroClaw store. You download the orchestrator, it just runs silently in the background. You open a nice window, you see a grid of traits, email manager, calendar scheduler, research helper.
And you just drag and drop them onto your agent?
Exactly. No editing YAML files,
Yeah.
no compiling code.
Wow.
Under the hood, it's doing all that complex Rust configuration. But to the user, it just feels like installing an app on their phone.
If they do that, if they combine that tiny 5 MB footprint with a drag-and-drop interface, that sounds incredibly dangerous for OpenClaw.
It's the winning combination.
Yeah.
High performance, low friction. But building a good UI is hard. It's a completely different skill set than writing a low-level REST orchestrator.
It's the difference between building an engine and building a car.
Yes.
And people buy cars, not engines.
Precisely. Many great back-end projects fail because they never figure out the front end.
I want to pivot now to the so what. Let's look at the future this report is painting, because even if ZeroClaw only grabs, say, 20% of the market, the implications of a 5 meg AI orchestrator are just wild. The report talks about shifting from a rented to an owned AI model. Let's unpack that.
This is the most fascinating part of this for me. Currently, the dominant model, the OpenClaw model, is centralized. You're basically renting intelligence, you connect to a heavy server, you pay a subscription or API fees, and the brain lives somewhere else.
And even if I run OpenClaw locally, I need a big, expensive machine, so I'm kind of renting space on my own hardware. I have to dedicate a $2,000 laptop to it.
Correct. It's a resource hog. But ZeroClaw, it envisions an invisible future. If the orchestrator is only 3.4 megabytes, where can it run?
Anywhere. A Raspberry Pi, a smartwatch.
A smart fridge, a Wi-Fi router, a thermostat. The report envisions a world of billions of agents because the cost of entry just drops to almost zero.
This is the toaster theory.
The toaster theory.
Yeah, if the AI brain is that small, why wouldn't my toaster have an agent? Hey, I see you like bagels on Tuesdays, should I preheat? But it's not sending that data to the cloud. It's processing it right there on the toaster's tiny little chip.
That is exactly the shift. It moves AI from being a service you go visit to a utility that's just baked into the environment around you. It becomes ubiquitous.
And owned is the key word there. If it's running on my toaster or my router, the data stays there.
That's the privacy dividend. If you don't need a massive cloud server to run the orchestration, you don't need to send your data to the cloud. The logic comes to the data instead of the other way around.
That feels like a massive swing back to the early days of the internet. Decentralized, local, private.
It is. It's a rebellion against the centralization we've seen over the last decade. But it only works if the software is efficient enough to run on the edge. That's why that 3.4 megabyte number is so critical. It's not a vanity metric. It's the key that unlocks the door.
But it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? If we have billions of invisible agents running on everything, managing our lives, what happens when they break?
Or what happens when they conflict? If your toaster agent starts fighting with your fridge agent over who gets to use the most energy, who arbitrates?
We're going to need a UN for appliances.
We might. But that's the complexity of distributed systems. When you move away from the central monolith, you gain freedom, but you also gain chaos.
Chaos is usually where the interesting stuff happens, though.
It is. And look, even if ZeroClaw doesn't kill OpenClaw, which is a very, very tall order, just its existence pushes the whole industry. It forces OpenClaw to go on a diet. It forces developers to ask, why does this need 2 gigabytes?
Competition is good for the consumer.
Always.
So, to bring this in for a landing, we are looking at a potential pivot point in 2026. On one side, you have the Goliath, OpenClaw, heavy, feature-rich, entrenched, expensive.
The standard.
And on the other side, David, ZeroClaw, tiny, efficient, Rust-based, but currently a bit user-hostile and lacking friends.
The rebel.
The timeline is set. We are in the migration phase right now. By mid-year, we'll see if those traits get ported over. By the end of the year, we'll see if they hit parity.
And we watch the user interface. That will be the tell. If you see a slick, easy-to-use ZeroClaw installer pop up on Product Hunt or GitHub, pay attention.
That's the signal.
That's the signal.
I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We spend so much time talking about AI models, how smart they are, how much they know. But today we talked about the container they live in. If AI transitions from being a heavy service you have to go to, like driving to the library, and becomes a tiny, invisible utility that lives in your walls, in your devices, owned by you, how did that change your relationship with it?
It stops being a tool you use and it starts being an environment you inhabit.
Exactly. What happens when orchestration is as boring, invisible, and essential as the electricity running through your walls? You don't think about electricity until the power goes out. Are we ready for AI to be that boring?
I certainly hope so.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll be watching the Git commits on this one very closely. See you next time.